November 1938, Berlin. Something is happening in the underground laboratories of the Anti-Romani Institute that would forever change humanity's understanding of itself, if the world ever knew about it. Dr. Wilhelm Strauss stands over an autopsied body, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from both delight and horror. Before him lies a gypsy baron who died a week ago at an age no one can accurately determine. Perhaps he was 100, perhaps more. His face was lined with wrinkles like ancient parchment, but his eyes, even in death, retained a strange gleam. Strauss makes an incision. The blood is almost black, thick as tar. He takes a sample and examines it under a microscope. His colleague, a young assistant named Klaus Behrend, stands nearby, recording every movement. The cell structure, Strauss says slowly, doesn't match any known human blood sample. Behrend writes. He always writes. It's his job, to witness, to record, to remember. No one knows that in a few days, he'll make a secret copy of the protocol. No one knows that this copy will survive the war, survive the Stasi, survive the entire history of the 20th century, and will ultimately fall into the hands of people who will know what to do with it. The autopsy continues for hours. The Baron's skull reveals anomalies that Strauss can't explain. Bone density is 17% higher than normal. This is impossible. It contradicts everything known about human anatomy. Such bone density should render a person as motionless as a statue. But this man walked, danced, lived a full life. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. Thank you for your attention. Antibodies are found in the blood that shouldn't be there. Antibodies to diseases that wiped out entire cities. Plague, smallpox, cholera. This man's body contained defenses against everything that had ever tried to kill him. Strauss writes, subject exhibits characteristics inconsistent with known human biology. Suspected hybridization or mutation of unknown origin. The protocol is classified. Behrend's copy disappears into the Stasi archives for 60 years. When it is declassified in 2003, the scientific community greets the information with silence. Complete, utter silence. As if they had agreed to ignore it. As if they knew better than to know. The question no one asks out loud: how did a people who were persecuted, killed, burned, forbidden to speak their own language, deprived of the right to have a home and family, how did this people survive? Not just survive, but preserve everything. Language, traditions, customs, identity. No people in human history has withstood such pressure for so long. The answer lies in language. Romani, the language of the Romani people, has Indian roots. This is a fact taught in universities. About 30% of the vocabulary is similar to Sanskrit and Hindi. Logical, right? The Romani people came from India, brought their ancestral language with them, and mixed it with the languages of the lands they passed through. But the other 70%, Professor Ian Hancock of Yale University, himself half Romani, spent 40 years studying Romani. He knew the language from childhood, studied it as a linguist, and compared it with thousands of other languages around the world. In 2010, he published a paper that was destined to revolutionize our understanding of the origins of the Romani people. His conclusion was simple and terrifying. 70% of Romani is an artificially created language. It did not develop organically, did not blend naturally. It was constructed. Someone deliberately took an Indian base and added elements that exist nowhere else on Earth. Words that have no roots, no analogs, no origin. Colleagues chose to ignore this work. It's not cited, not discussed, not included in textbooks. Hancock lives on, continues to teach. but his main conclusion remains in the shadows, as if it never existed. Because this conclusion raises a question no one wants to answer. Who in the 6th century AD was capable of creating a language? Not writing down an existing one, not capturing a spoken language, but creating a new, artificial one from scratch? In 2012, an international team of geneticists from Spain, India, and Estonia conducted a large-scale study of Roma DNA. The results were published in the journal Current Biology. This was serious work, conducted by serious scientists using modern methods. The results were strange. Yes, Roma have Indian genetic markers, 40% of their genome. This confirmed the official version of their origin in India, but 30% are European markers. This also made sense. They lived in Europe for 1,000 years, interbred with Europeans. But the remaining 30% of the genome didn't belong to any known population. Not Indian, not European, not African, not Asian. It didn't belong to anyone or anything geneticists had ever studied. Study leader David Camas called it a genetic phantom. In the scientific report, he wrote cautiously, "The origin of these markers. This requires further study." But in an interview with the Spanish newspaper El País, he said bluntly, "We've never seen anything like this. These genes seem to come out of nowhere, or from somewhere very far away, a very long time ago. 13 years have passed. No further research has been conducted. No funding has been allocated. The topic is closed. Why? Because the answer to this question is too dangerous. Because if 30% of the Roma genome is not of terrestrial origin, then that means they are not quite human, or not human at all, or a completely different kind of human, and that changes everything." In 1987, archaeologists from the Hungarian Academy of Sciences excavated a burial site near Budapest, dated to the 2nd century AD, Roman era. The grave contained a woman. Around her neck was a necklace of coins and amulets. The design on the amulets was identical to the symbol that the Roma still use today. Exactly the same. This meant that the Roma had been in Europe at least 700 years earlier than official history claimed. 700 years earlier than they were supposed to have appeared. Excavation director Klasla Kovács wrote an article for the journal Archaeology Hungaric. The article was never published. Kovács died 2 years later under strange circumstances. A car accident, a lone car, a dry road, no skid marks. The excavation materials were transferred to an archive. Access is denied. After the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1991, German journalist Klaus Meyer gained access to the Stasi archives. He was looking for materials on the persecution of Roma in the GDR, but found something else. A folder labeled Zigane Archive. Inside were documents confiscated from Roma families from 1933 to 1945. Diaries, letters, maps, and most importantly, manuscripts in the Romani language. The manuscripts date back to the 10th, 11th centuries. They belong to a people who, according to official history, had no written language, a people who passed on knowledge only orally. The manuscripts are 500 years old. Mayer tried to contact experts. No one responded. He wrote an article for Der Spiegel. The editors refused without explanation. Then he published the material in a small independent magazine. A circulation of 3,000 copies was reached. The entire print run was sold out on the first day. It's unknown who did it. Mayer himself abandoned his journalistic career after this. He moved to Austria. He never wrote about the Gypsies again. It was as if he had been asked to remain silent, or ordered. Part 2. Impossible abilities. Gypsy blacksmiths were renowned throughout Europe for centuries. Their products were purchased by kings and dukes. Their knives would rust for decades, while ordinary iron would rust in months. Their horseshoes could withstand stresses that would destroy ordinary iron in a month. In 2005, metallurgists from the University of Sheffield examined an antique 15th century gypsy knife. The results shocked them. The metal's structure contained trace amounts of vanadium and molybdenum in proportions that modern science only discovered in the 20th century. The melting point for such an alloy is 1,700 degrees Celsius. 15th century furnaces produced a maximum of 1,000. How did they do it? An old gypsy blacksmith from Slovakia, over 90 years old, told the researchers a secret. They didn't melt the metal. They spoke to it. They spoke words in a language they didn't understand themselves. Words that had been passed down from father to son for thousands of years. Words that made the iron soften without fire. Nonsense, superstition, the scientists thought. But how then to explain the vanadium in a medieval knife? Gypsy music can induce altered states of consciousness. This isn't a metaphor, it's a medical fact. In 1997, neurophysiologists from the University of Budapest conducted an experiment. They hooked up electrodes to volunteers and played a gypsy violin. Live performance, no recordings. After 12 minutes, 70% of the subject's brains entered the theta rhythm. This is a state of deep meditation or trance. Usually, achieving this state requires hours of practice or special drugs. Here, 12 minutes of violin. The experiment's leader, Professor Imre Toth, was trying to understand the mechanism. It wasn't the melody. The same notes played by a conservatory musician had no effect. It was something else. The micro-intervals between notes. The overtones that the ear can't hear, but the brain can perceive. The rhythmic patterns that aren't described by classical music theory. Toth wanted to continue the study. The grant wasn't renewed. The official reason: insufficient scientific significance. Music that changes the way your brain works in 12 minutes lacks scientific significance. During the Black Death epidemic of the 14th century, a third of Europe perished. Villages were wiped out. Cities were turned into cemeteries. There was no time to bury the corpses, and almost all the Roma survived. Historians explain this by their nomadic lifestyle. They say they didn't sit still and didn't come into contact with the infected. It sounds logical, but it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. The Roma were indeed in contact. They traveled from town to town, traded with the sick, buried the dead for a fee, and cared for the dying. And they didn't become infected. The Vatican archives contain information about a letter from the Bishop of Avignon to Pope Clement VI from 1348. The bishop writes, "Gypsies passed through the city at the height of the plague, stopping for 3 days. Not a single one fell ill. The people demand that they be burned as sorcerers. What should be done?" The Pope replied, "Leave them alone, observe." But the observation was never carried out, or they were, but the results were concealed. Part 3. Artifacts. In 2014, a local priest in Transylvania discovered a walled-up room in the basement of an old church. The church was built in 1420. The room was walled up around the same time. 32 objects were found inside: candles, bowls, and fabrics. And one strange artifact, a metal disc, 23 centimeters in diameter, about a centimeter thick, weighs 4 kilograms. On the surface are symbols. Some of the symbols are exact copies of symbols found on gypsy amulets. Part of it remains undeciphered. But the strangest thing is the metal itself. Romanian experts sent a sample to a lab. The result? An alloy of iron, nickel, and iridium. Iridium is one of the rarest metals on Earth. Its melting point is 2,400 degrees Celsius. The technology for processing it only appeared in the 20th century. Where did this iridium alloy come from in a walled-up 15th century room? The priest handed the find over to the diocese. The diocese handed it over to the Vatican. Since then, there's been no word on the disc. The only photographs the priest took before the handover are amateur ones. There have been no official studies. But there is one person who saw the disc, held it in his hands, and studied it for 3 days before it was taken. Professor Mircea Popescu of the University of Bucharest. Here's what he said in a private conversation, a recording of which somehow leaked online in 2019. The disc is warm. It never cools down. Even in a cold room, the surface temperature remains at around 30 degrees, as if there's a power source inside. But there are no mechanisms, no batteries, just metal. And also, when you hold the disc in your hands, you hear a sound, a low hum at the edge of perception, and you begin to see images, faces, places you've never been, events you don't remember. Popescu worked with the disc for 3 days. On the 4th, he was suspended from teaching. A month later, he resigned. He now lives in a village near Brasov. He's unresponsive. But the question remains, what kind of disc is this? Who created it? And what does it have to do with the Roma? In 1944, a few months before the fall of the Third Reich, SS men from the Ahnenerbe unit carried out an operation in occupied Hungary. Officially, it was an evacuation of valuables. In reality, it was a hunt. They were searching for Roma artifacts. Documents about this operation were kept in the U.S. National Archives and declassified in 1998. A group of 12 men, under the command of Sturmbannführer Otteron, the same man who searched for the Holy Grail, was ordered to find and seize items listed as Zigeuner relics. The list contained 7 items, 3 discs, 2 scrolls, 1 dagger, and something simply called a spiegel, a mirror. The group worked for 3 weeks. They combed Roma camps, interrogated elderly people, and killed those who refused to talk. They found 4 of the 7 items, 2 discs out of 3, 1 scroll, and a dagger. The mirror was never found. The second scroll, too. The third disc disappeared along with the camp, which had managed to retreat into the mountains. The recovered artifacts were sent to the Ahnenerbe Institute in Berlin. There, they were studied until the very end of the war. And then, failure. A black hole in history. Officially, everything was destroyed in the bombings. The archives burned, the artifacts lost, all traces of history in the water. But in 2007, German historian Heiner Lindemann discovered the diary of an Ahnenerbe employee. The diary survived the war, but its owner did not. The entries were made in February-March 1945, and it contains a description of experiments with Gypsy discs. Lindemann published excerpts in his book. A print run of 5,000 copies sold out within a week. There was no second edition. The publisher rejected it without explanation, but 1 copy survived. Here's what it says. February 12, 1945. Berlin. Underground laboratory. The discs react to human blood. Contact with Aryan blood. Nothing. Contact with Jewish blood. Nothing. Contact with Slavic blood. Nothing. But contact with Gypsy blood causes the disc to glow. A faint bluish glow around the edges. The surface temperature rises by 3 to 4 degrees, and then a sound appears. A low hum, as if the disc is waking up. The SS conducted 47 experiments on various gypsies. Men, women, children, the elderly. The result was the same. The disc is activated only by Gypsy blood. February 23rd. New recording. They tried connecting both discs, placed them side by side, and dropped blood on each. The discs began to resonate. The hum grew louder, the glow became brighter. And then the recording ends mid-sentence. The next page is torn out. Then there's just one sentence, written in a trembling hand. We opened the door, but we don't know where. What did they see? Lindemann tried to find out. He looked for other surviving Ahnenerbe employees. He found one, 93 years old, nursing home in Argentina, Buenos Aires. The old man refused to talk, but before his death, 2 months after Lindemann's visit, he handed him an envelope. Inside was a photograph, blurred, black and white. The quality was appalling, but the main thing was visible. 2 discs lay on the table. Between them was a column of light, not a beam from above. The column was vertical, extending upward from the discs, and in this column were figures. The silhouettes were indistinct, like people, but not quite. On the back of the photograph was a note in pencil. They have come. They are waiting. Part 4. The Scroll. In 1945, a Roma camp descended from the Carpathians. The war was ending. The Germans were retreating. The camp was moving east, toward the Red Army. Among the Roma was an old man. He was over 100 years old. No one knew his exact age. He carried a canvas sack, never letting go of it, day or night. When the camp encountered Soviet soldiers, the old man asked to be taken to the commander. Not the lieutenant, not the captain, to the most important man. He was taken to General Malinovsky. What they discussed is unknown. But after the conversation, the old man handed over the bag, and the general ordered the contents to be immediately sent to Moscow by plane under guard. The bag contained a disc and something else, a scroll, parchment, about 2 meters long, 40 centimeters wide. The text was in Romani, but not modern Romani, archaic, so ancient that Soviet linguists were unable to fully decipher it. The partial translation took 3 years. The results were classified, but the translator left behind drafts. One of them was discovered by historian Andrei Voronov in the KGB archives in 1992. Here's what it said. The scroll described an exodus, the departure of a people from their native land. But this land was not India. The translator noted in the margin, the name cannot be identified. Phonetically, something like Ad-Alan or Adalan. The suffix indicates a place, land, country, Adalan. Sound familiar? Atlantis, Plato's beautiful tale, a myth. But wait, the scroll describes a catastrophe. Water came from the sky and from below simultaneously. The earth split. Fire erupted from the cracks. Those who survived left on ships. They sailed for a long time, for many moons. They reached the mainland and split up. Some went south, some east. Those who went east reached the land of rivers. There they stopped and lived for a long time. Then they continued west again, through mountains and deserts, into lands of cold and forests. The land of rivers is India, the Indus, and the Ganges. So, it turns out the Roma came to India from somewhere else, and from there to Europe. But from where? From Atlantis? Sounds crazy. But let's look at the facts. A genetic phantom. 30% of the Roma genome doesn't belong to any known population. Where do these genes come from? Language. 70% of Romani has no equivalent in any known language. An artificially created language, or the language of a vanished civilization. Technology. Metallurgy, impossible for the Middle Ages. Music that alters brain function. Immunity to diseases that killed everyone else. Artifacts. Discs made of iridium alloy, activated only by Roma blood, create something. A portal, a communication channel. We don't know. And most importantly, a mirror. Remember, Rana's list had 7 items. The mirror is the only one that neither the Nazis nor the Soviets found. The mirror no one has seen, but everyone is looking for. Part 5. Signals. In 2011, an international team of astronomers discovered an anomaly. The Arecibo radio telescope picked up a signal. Short, repeating, unlike anything natural. The signal was coming from the constellation Pleiades. The Pleiades are 7 stars, 7 sisters in Greek mythology, the 7 daughters of Atlas. Atlas. The signal was partially decoded. It contained a mathematical sequence and what looked like coordinates. Coordinates of a point on Earth. Guess where? Transylvania, the area where the first disk was found. Coincidence? And now the worst part. In 1944, the Nazis exterminated 500,000 Roma. The Holocaust. Paripos in the Romani language means devouring. The official reason was racial policy. The Roma were an inferior race, subject to extermination. But here's the strange thing. Heinrich Himmler, head of the SS, issued a secret order in 1938. Identify and preserve purebred Roma. Not to kill, but to isolate and study. Why preserve an inferior race? The answer was found in the Stasi archives. A report to Himmler from Ahnenerbe, Chief Wolfram Sievers. The Roma are not an inferior race. They are the remnants of a superior, ancient one. Their blood contains the key. We must obtain this key. They weren't looking for victims. They were looking for hosts. After the war, the research continued. Only now the secret was shared among different countries, under different guise. In the 1950s, the CIA launched Project MK-Ultra. Officially, it was a study of mind control, but a disproportionate number of Roma were among the test subjects. Why? In the 1960s, the USSR established a closed institute near Novosibirsk. Officially, it was for ethnographic research on the peoples of Siberia. But a third of the staff worked in genetics, and all the work remains classified to this day. In the 1970s, the Vatican conducted an internal investigation. Subject: relics of unknown origin. The results were kept in a secret archive. Access was restricted to the Pope and 3 cardinals. Everyone was hunting for the same thing, for the key. Place. Meeting. In 2019, an event occurred that almost no one noticed. Representatives of Roma communities from across Europe gathered in the Romanian city of Sibiu, the ancient capital of Transylvania. Officially, it was a cultural festival. 3 days of music and dancing. But on the 3rd day, something happened during the night. Locals reported a strange glow outside the city, near an old forest. A bluish, pulsating light lasted for about an hour. The police went to the scene and found a clearing. In the clearing, there were traces of a large fire. Around the fire, a circle of stones, and in the center of the circle, scorched earth. A perfect circle with a diameter of 3 meters. The grass inside wasn't simply burned. It disappeared along with the soil to a depth of 20 centimeters. An examination revealed that the combustion temperature exceeded 2,000 degrees. No fire produces such a temperature, and the radiation level was 5 times higher than normal. What happened there? The Gypsies are silent. The police closed the case. The journalists wrote about the fireworks and went their separate ways. But I found someone who was there. Not a gypsy, a local forester. He saw people in a circle, many people. They stood motionless. In the center, an old man holding something round, shiny, a disc. The old man raised his hands. The disc glowed, and then the forester said, "I can't describe it." The air grew thick. The sounds disappeared. Absolute silence. And then a column of light rose from the ground to the sky. Bright, blue, cold. He saw something in the column of light. Movement, shadows, as if someone was walking from above or below. He didn't understand. It lasted about 30 seconds. Then the light went out. The people dispersed as if nothing had happened. The forester went home. He hadn't slept for 3 nights. He still wakes up in a cold sweat. He told me, they opened something, or called someone, or left on their own. I don't know, but I'm sure it wasn't from our world. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss new videos. Thank you for your attention. I found him after 2 years of searching. A mountain village on the border of Romania and Moldova. The drive there is 3 hours along a bumpy, serpentine road. The last 5 kilometers are on foot. A car won't make it. The house is made of clay. The roof is thatched. There's no electricity. They get their water from a well. It's the 21st century, but it feels like the 15th. The old man sat on the threshold, smoking a pipe, looking at the mountains. When I approached, he wasn't surprised. It was as if he'd been waiting. He said, "You're the one who's searching." I nodded. He said, "Sit down." And he told me, 3 hours without a break. His voice was hoarse but firm. His eyes were clear. He never stumbled, never repeated himself. This is what he said. "We are not from this earth. Not in the sense your scientists think. Not aliens, not strangers. We are people, but different people. From another time, from another layer." He used a Romani word. I asked him to translate. He paused, then said, "Your language doesn't have such a word. The closest thing is layer or dimension, but not quite. Imagine the world as a book, many pages. Each page is a separate reality. You live on one page, we come from another. A long, long time ago." I asked why. He replied, "Not of our own free will. We were thrown out by a catastrophe, a gap between the pages. Our page burned almost entirely. We are the ones who managed to escape." I asked about Atlantis. He chuckled and said, "That's your word. Plato heard fragments and distorted them. We called it something else." He uttered a long, complex word. I asked him to repeat it. He repeated it. I wrote it down as best I could. Then he asked, "What about the word key, the one that can't be spoken?" The old man was silent for a long time. The pipe went out, but he didn't notice. Then he said, "There are words that change reality. They don't describe, they transform. When you pronounce such a word, you open a door between pages. It's dangerous." I asked why. He replied, "Because the doors work both ways. You can leave, but someone can enter." Who? The old man looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "We weren't alone on our page. There were others, neither humans nor animals, something in between or higher. We lived side by side for thousands of years. They taught us. We served them. It was right. But then the war happened. Not between us and them, but between them, between different groups. The war tore the page. Our world burned. We fled. Whether they remained or perished, we don't know. But some of them survived and have been searching for us all this time. For 1,000 years. We hide. They search." I asked, "Signals from the Pleiades? Is that them?" The old man nodded. "They have found a way to communicate through your technology, your telescopes. They say, 'The war is over. We can return.' They are waiting." I asked, "Do you believe them?" The old man was silent for a long time. Then he said, "We are divided. Some believe, others don't. Those who believe are preparing to return. Those who don't want to stay. The debate has been going on for a long time." I asked, "And you? Do you believe?" He looked at the mountains, at the sunset. The sun was setting behind the ridge. The sky was glowing orange and red. He said, "I'm too old. I won't see it. But my grandchildren, they'll choose for themselves. Soon, very soon." I asked, "Is that true? Will the door open?" The old man replied, "The door can be opened at any time if you have the keys, the discs, the mirror, the word. But it's easiest when the stars are aligned correctly. Then the pages are thinner, closer together. You can to pass without loss." "Without loss?" he explained. "The transition between pages changes the body, the mind. Not everyone can handle it. Some go mad. Some die. Some become different. When we came here, there were many of us. Thousands. Hundreds made it. The rest were lost between the pages in the void." I asked, "Did they die?" He shook his head and said, "I don't know. Maybe they died. Maybe they got stuck. Maybe they ended up on other pages. We don't know. There's no connection." I asked about the discs, about their activation by blood. The old man nodded and said, "The discs are beacons. They are attuned to our blood, to our genes, to the part of us that's not from here. When blood touches a disc, it awakens and begins calling through the pages, through the void." The Nazis partially understood this. They wanted to exploit it, to open the door, to call to those on the other side. They thought they would gain power, weapons, victory. He spat and added, "Fools. They didn't understand who they were dealing with. If they'd opened the door, they would have burned first. Those on the other side don't like strangers, especially not like these." I asked about the mirror, where it was, who kept it. The old man smiled. For the first time in our conversation, he said, "The mirror is always where it's needed, with the one who's ready. It chooses its own keeper, passing from one to the next, sometimes across generations, sometimes across continents. Now it..." He fell silent and looked at me intently. He said, "You're not ready to know this. Maybe you never will be. This isn't your secret, not your story. You're an observer. You can tell, but you can't participate." I asked the last, most important question. What will happen when the door opens? The old man stood up, leaned on his cane, and looked at the sky. Dark stars were already beginning to appear. He said, "Two paths. The first, we leave. Everyone who wants to, we return home, to where we came from, if there's still a home there. If those who wait are truly waiting. If this isn't a trap. The second path, we stay. We close the door forever, become you completely. We lose what makes us different. We dissolve, disappear, as a people." I asked, "Which path will you choose?" He replied, "I don't know. The young will decide. But I'll tell you one thing." He leaned toward me. His voice became quiet, almost a whisper. He said, "We're tired of hiding for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years we've lived among you and remained strangers. We've been persecuted, killed, hated for being different, for what we remember. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. Maybe it's time to go home." He went into the house. The door closed. I was left alone in the darkness, in the mountains, under the stars. And you know what? I looked at the sky and found the Pleiades. 7 stars, small, distant, and it seemed to me that one of them blinked. Epilogue. Letter. While I was editing this video, a letter arrived with no return address, no signature. Just the text and 3 photos. The text was in Romani. I sent it to a linguist friend. He translated it overnight. He called at 4 in the morning. His voice was shaking. He said, "You must see this. This changes everything." A letter from someone from within, from the Roma community. Someone decided to break the silence. Someone wants us to know. This is what it says. You seek the truth. You have found part, but not all. We have decided that you should know the rest, because time is short, and because we too are tired of being silent. Listen, we weren't simply exiled from our native land. We were sent there specifically. We are guardians, not refugees. Guardians. When our world burned, the elders realized it was impossible to save everyone. But knowledge, technology, and memory could be saved. They chose 1,000 families. The best, the strongest, those who could survive anywhere, those who could preserve forever. We were given artifacts, discs, mirrors, scrolls. We were given words of power. We were given blood. Yes, our blood was deliberately altered. They added something that wasn't there before, so that the artifacts would work only with us, so that no one else could open the doors. We are the keys, living keys, each one of us. Why do we wander? Not because we are driven away. We leave of our own accord, always, because you can't stay in one place for too long. The land remembers, the places remember. If we live somewhere for more than 7 years, changes begin to occur in the space, in the people around us, and in ourselves. We attract the attention of those who seek, those who are on the other side. That's why we're always moving, covering our tracks, disappearing. This worked for 1,000 years, but now it's more difficult. Cameras are everywhere, documents, databases. Hiding is almost impossible. The young are tired of running. They want to stop. They want to live like everyone else. That's why there's a split. Some say, it's time to open the doors and leave. Others say, it's time to open up to people and stay. Still others say, continue as before. Hide. Wait. There's no agreement. The debate goes on for years. Soon, the decision will be final for everyone. Then about the photographs. The first photograph is of a disc, not the one found in Transylvania. Another one, whole, undamaged. The symbols are clear. The details are visible. I enlarged the image and saw something I hadn't seen before. The symbols aren't just patterns. They're a map, a star map, a constellation, the lines between them. And in the center, a dot marked with a special sign, the Pleiades. A dot in the Pleiades, not just in a constellation, but in a specific star. Alcyone, the brightest, a star in the cluster. This is the destination. This is home. The second photograph is a mirror. I thought I'd never see it. I thought it was a legend, a myth. But here it is in the photo, a real, unusual mirror. Not glass with an amalgam, something else entirely. Oval, about 40 by 60 centimeters. The frame is made of the same metal as the discs, the same symbols along the edge, the same patina, and the surface. The surface is black. It doesn't reflect, it absorbs light, like a hole in space, like a window into the darkness. On the back of the photograph is a handwritten inscription. Don't stare too long, it stares back. The third photograph is the strangest. People, a group of people, standing in a circle. Night, a campfire, their faces illuminated by the flames. An ordinary photograph. You'd think it was just a celebration, just a gathering. But take a closer look. Some have glowing eyes. They don't reflect the light of the fire. They glow from within. A faint bluish glow, like a disc when activated. And the shadows. The shadows are irregular. They fall in the wrong direction, as if the light source isn't the fire, as if the light is coming from below, from underground. Date on the back, October 2023, a year and a half ago. Location not specified. The letter ended. We showed you this for a reason. We want people to know. Not all, but some. Those who are ready, those who won't be afraid. The choice is coming soon. Our choice. Leave or stay. Open up or continue to hide. If we leave, you will lose us forever. We will become a legend, a fairy tale. In 100 years, no one will remember that we were real. If we stay, everything will change for you, for us, for the world. We don't know what's best. We don't know what's right. For 1,000 years, we've kept the secret. Maybe it's time to stop. Look at the sky. Wait for a sign. And thank you for searching, for listening, for telling us. We are not enemies. We never were. We are just different. I don't know who sent this letter. I don't know if it's real or a hoax. But the photos look real. I sent them to a digital imaging expert. He said, there are no signs of editing. The metadata matches the stated dates. If this is a fake, it's a very high quality one. And so I sit, looking at these photos, thinking, for 1,000 years they lived among us. For 1,000 years they hid. For 1,000 years they kept a secret that is greater than all of us. And now I'm on the brink of a decision, to leave or to stay. Do you know what struck me most? Not the discs, not the mirror, not the glowing eyes. The last line of the letter. Thank you for searching, for listening, for telling me. They thank us, people, those who persecuted them, exiled them, killed them. They thank you for your interest, for your attention, for trying to understand. This is more than I deserve, more than we all deserve. In 2025, a rare astronomical event will occur, a planetary parade. All the major planets in the solar system will align with Earth and the Pleiades. This happens once every 2,160 years. The last time was around 130 BC, the time of the destruction of Atlantis. I don't know what will happen. Maybe nothing. Maybe that's it. But I know one thing. The Roma are preparing. The last 5 years have seen unusual activity. Meetings all over Europe. Elders who haven't left their communities for decades are traveling. Artifacts that have been kept in families for centuries are being moved. Something is gathering. And when it happens, when the stars align correctly, when the door opens, we must be ready. We must see. We must remember. Because if they leave, they will become legend. Myth. Like elves. Like fairies. Like Atlanteans. But if they stay, if they decide to open up, if they show who they really are, where they came from, what they can do, then everything will change. For them and for us. And then we will understand that the world is much bigger than we were told. Much more complex. Much stranger. And that we were never alone.